before I get into the tutorial for the mini album, I just wanted to make sure or show you what I did to start with the Vintage Coastal Collection by Simple Stories. This was actually a box that came with some lotion, and it was a birthday gift, but it was a really thick, heavy-duty box, and so I didn't want to get rid of it. It already had this acetate window in it, so I just went ahead and covered it with the Vintage Coastal paper, and the box was a pinkish color, and you can see that along the edges, but that's okay because it matched fine. And then there was a piece of like the information about the lotion here in the corner, so I had to cover that, but I thought that looked good with one of the cut aparts, and I just added a flower and some trim. But I didn't want to add any paper on this white part because the box wouldn't open and close very well because it would be too tight. So I did not put any paper on the bottom outside, and I didn't put any on the inside here because, like I said, I wanted it to fit well when I didn't want it to be too snug. This is one of the chipboard elements, and I just added some jute here and there. But on the inside then, this is from the paper collection also. When I put the paper down, I could still see some of the pink in the corners, and this I didn't want that. So I just put a bead of glue around all the edges, and I just stuck this in the corners, and it was just the right width so you covered up any pink that you could see. And it's rustic enough that I thought, wow, perfect. So I'm going to make an album to fit inside of this box, and so I'm thinking the actual box is about 8 3/4 by 7.5. So chances are I'm going to make a square album that's probably going to be about 7 by 7. I might have to go 6 by 7 or 6 by 7.5, something like that, because I don't want it to be too tight in there. I want to be able to get my hand in there and pull it out. So that's the direction where I got the idea to go ahead and make that size album. And I'm just going to add to this box, and I think it would be a great gift. So let's go ahead and get started with the tutorial for the album. The cover of our book has 3 panels that are 7.5 by 6, and then you're going to need a 1 1/4 by 6 and a 1 by 6. So this ends up being pretty long, and you probably can't see the whole thing on camera, but when you lay your chipboard out, you place some sort of adhesive on the back, and I use the score sheets from Country Craft Creations. They come in an 8.5 by 11 or a 6 by 6, and it just really is a time saver. So then I laid down the 7.5 by 6. I put a piece of 1/4 inch score tape down as a spacer, and so that it will help kind of tuck in the paper and hold it real well. The second piece is the 1 1/4 by 6. Again, another piece of 1/4 inch score tape in between the 2 pieces of chipboard. Then I laid down the second 7.5 by 6, 1/4 inch score tape as a spacer. This one is 1 by 6, so the larger one is on your left for the spine, and then the last piece is 7.5 by 6. So obviously you don't have a piece of paper that's this long, so you need to combine some cardstock. And so what I did is I took 2 12 by 8s and a 6 by 8, and I combined them by just gluing them together. You can also use score tape to combine them. I have my I combined my 2 12 by 8s, and then I put my 6 by 8 on the back. You want to make sure that when you combine your paper that you don't have a piece of chipboard on at the edge of where you're, let me show you. So right here I combined 2 pieces of paper, so I want to make sure that the end of my chipboard never falls right there. I want to make sure that I have chipboard on either side, because we don't want to have to fold or bend at that connecting section. Okay, so after you have laid out your 5 pieces of chipboard, you need to get ready to wrap it so that it's nice and snug and neat and with neat corners. So we never want chipboard coming through on our corners. So I'm going to place 1/4 inch score tape around the perimeter of my chipboard on all 4 sides, and I'm going to place the score tape around the edge on my paper on all 4 sides. As you are laying down your score tape around the perimeter of the chipboard, remember to take the backing off of the spacer pieces. It's just easier if you do it before you start wrapping your chipboard. So as I am putting the score tape around on the edges, I make sure I take those off. People do their corners, their mitering a little bit differently. Some people do a square, some people do the angled corner. I'm going to do the angled corner. You do want about 1 inch. We went 1 inch on the top and 1 inch on the bottom as we laid our chipboard down, and you also want about 1 inch on each side, so you may have to trim your paper. I just laid my ruler down and trimmed, so I have a little bit more than 1 inch, but that's okay. So I have this tool that helps me because you don't want to get too close to the chipboard if you're cutting it at an angle. You need to leave a little bit of a space so that the chipboard will not show through. So do not cut right up against the chipboard when you are angling it. The only bad thing about this tool is I just wish it was a little bit longer because it doesn't go all the way to the edge, but it serves its purpose. I mean, it does okay. And then let's go ahead and do the other side. All 4 corners get mitered. So at this point, I want to start training my paper, and so I want it to know that it's got to fold over. So I'm going to pick up my chipboard and I'm going to just fold it over on the paper and start giving it that bend. And this is a long piece, so and then I'm going to go with my burnishing tool and just go around to make sure it needs to stand up and go up and over. Okay. Same on the end. I'm going to go ahead and lift this up so it knows. And I'm going to go through and burnish it on the side then. The crisper the corners, the better. Okay. The opposite long side. Oopsie. Take your burnishing tool. Paper I'm using is the Artisan cardstock. It's very durable and strong, so I might be a little bit more rough than you should be if you're not using the Artisan cardstock. And then the last. Alright, so I work with the long sides first. Now this is a very long side. Now my 1 1/4 is on the left hand side. It doesn't matter right now, but you might see that the writing is upside down, so I don't want you to be confused. As we're making our book, the 1 1/4 inch spine is on our left. So I like to put a bead of the glue along the chipboard and let it sit for a second to kind of loosen up the fibers so that when the paper wraps, it holds real well and it's got a nice clean, smooth corner. I'm going to go ahead and take the backing off of the score tape. I'm going to take it off the bottom. I'm going to take it off these sides so that when I lay down the paper, these are out of the way. And I'm going to take off the piece that's on the white paper on the bottom. Now I do want to place some glue. I like to in this middle section where there's no adhesive. Alright, and I like to start in the middle, push up and over, and then kind of fan my hand out as I am laying it down. And then make sure you burnish it real well to get it to stick. We like it smooth. And then I like to go and do the edge so that it gets as, I'll set it up, so that the paper sticks to that chipboard and has a smooth edge. You can start tucking this in the creases if you want. I like to do the opposite long side, so we're going to do the same thing. Put your bead of glue down first so it has a little bit of time to soak in. Go ahead and remove the backing. Put some glue in the white section that doesn't have any adhesive. Okay. And starting in the middle, I'm going to lay that down, kind of go up and out. There and burnish. And go ahead and do the edge. Okay, so now we're going to do one end. Now you will have to tuck in, if you're mitered like I did, you're going to have to tuck in just a little bit here just to cover that chipboard. So I just kind of push that paper around the chipboard. I'm going to put that bead of glue. Remove your backing. Fill in the empty. Okay, I think I have that tucked in there well enough. Now if this was 1 inch, you wouldn't have this, I mean, it'd be perfect, but it doesn't matter, it's going to be covered anyway. But and then I'm going to go ahead and rub that on the edge. And we just have one more side. Tuck that paper around the chipboard, so kind of push it in. I just take my fingernail. That backing off there. Come on. And our cover is almost complete. burnish that down. All right, so it should be nice and smooth. Now you can decide if you want to put white paper down on the inside, or if you want to do your pattern your designer paper, pattern paper. I'm going to go ahead and put white on the spine pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and have probably about, if this is 1 1/4, this is a 1/4, that's 1 3/4, 4. I'll do probably about a 4-inch piece. So I'm going to do 2 pieces that are 4 inches by 5 7/8. So 2 by 4 and 5 7/8, and that's of the cardstock. So 4 inches across, 5 7/8 tall, and that's of white paper so that we can cover the spines. The spine piece, when we lay it down, I already have one down to kind of show you what it's going to look like. It is longer than, or it's wider than the spine, so I went 4 inches. So what you want to do is place score tape on each side of the chipboard where the spine is. Now the purpose of that, if you don't do it, you're going to get buckling and it's not going to lay down flat and nice, and I know that from experience. And then after you do these strips, so I have one on the end of the 7 1/2 by 6, one at the 1 1/4 by 6. You'll have a little bit of space there. The other side of the 1 1/4 by 6, and then the edge of the 7 1/2 by 6. So I'm doing, actually, my book is turned around, remember. Then you want to take your paper and place score tape around the perimeter, and then I'm going to fill in the center with glue. So as I'm taking off the backing of my, oops, I'm going to do this one first. When I take the backing off of the score tape on the paper, I want to make sure I don't have any little pieces of that tape hanging over, so I'm going to make sure I tuck it on the paper. I'll show you. So when I laid my score tape down, I'm going to have to make sure I tuck that over so it doesn't stick out. And I'll just kind of make sure I wrap it around so it lays down and has a smooth edge. Oopsie. And this one I'll have to do some tucking. So I'm just going to make sure it goes over. All right, I'll fill in some glue in the center here. And we want to center it side to side, up and down. You want to burnish it real well. Once you feel like you've got it burnished down real well, we want to start tucking that paper into the space that we had that score tape. That's when this helps, because it's going to grab that paper to keep it nice and held real well. So I'm just taking my burnishing tool and pushing that paper down. I've seen some people use their ruler. Careful with again, the paper you're using. This is real strong. It's the Artisan. So if you aren't using Artisan, you may have to be a little bit more gentle. So I'm going to work it in on this side too. I'm slightly bringing the chipboard up. Okay. And then I just want to make sure everything's tucked in, smooth. All right, so there we go. Now, the 1 1/4 inch side is on my left. It is, yeah, I think. Yep, my bigger one is on the left. So we just want to make sure, I think I want it on the, yeah, that's what I want. So I'm going to lift this up. And then this over. Kind of bend it a little bit to make it do what you want it to do. And then I'm going to bend this one up and over. And there is our book. Okay. So the left-hand side's a little bit bigger because we have this piece of chipboard that's tucked into it. So that allows for that. All right, so it's looking good. Now it's time to start adding the inside features. Okay, think about what kind of paper you want to place on the inside and the outside. I reserve those papers and put them off to the side so I don't accidentally use them. So think about what you want for your cover and these inside pieces. Because they're longer or bigger, you want to make sure you save those papers. All right, so let's go ahead and start picking up papers and we'll start building the inside of our book. I'm going to go ahead and do the outside of the cover first so that I don't forget some of the important things while they're still in my head. Like I have to do a closure, and if I don't do it now, I forget. So you're going to need 3 pieces of 5 7/8 by 6 1/2 if you wrap your outside cover like I do. So I happen to have some burlap paper, and so that's what I'm going to use to put around my spine. And so it's like a cardboard texture, but it's flexible enough that I could score it. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to have, my cover is going to look something like this. That's the wrong. Okay, like so. And then this one will also be wrapped here. So you'll see a little bit on this edge. Okay, so we have to put our paper down first. So these ended up being, I wanted 1 inch overhang on each. So these are about, the one on the left was about 1, 2, 3, about 3 1/2 inches long, 3 1/4 inches long, and same way with this one. And then I just scored it 1 inch, and then I wrapped it around the spine, and then I kind of creased it to see where I needed to score at the other spot. So I have already inked my papers. This is going to be the back, this is the front, and then this will be on the inside cover. So I'm going to go ahead and do the back first. And the only reason why I'm showing this on camera is because I have the closure I'm doing is a piece of twine that I'm going to stick underneath the paper. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and I'm going to put glue. And I'm going to have to center this one on the back. Or did I do? Yeah, I'm going to center it. Come on, glue. All right. Make sure you get that glue up against the edge pretty well, because I don't like my paper lifting on my cover. So I go as far to the edge as I can, and then if there's excess, I just wipe it up, because this dries clear anyway, and there's really not that much of a shine to it, so I'd rather have a little bit too much than not enough. Okay, so again, I'm going to center this on the back. Doesn't have to be perfect. And burnish that, baby. So now I'm going to do the inside right So this is with the smaller spine on the right hand side. Now when you put this one in, you're going to want to go more towards the left because our wrap will be covering this. Again, I did these 5 7/8 by 6 1/2. You can make them, if you don't want to wrap, then you would, like if you're just going to do a regular spine, then this would need to be 7 3/8 inches long because our book was 7 1/2. So you go 1/8 of an inch smaller. Okay, I'm going to lay this flat. I'll try to anyway. No, I won't. Okay. I did ink my edges, and I am using ground espresso, the Tim Holtz Distress Oxide. Okay, and now I'm going to do the front cover, and this one is going to go towards, so I need this open a little bit for the over the wrap. Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot I changed how I am doing my closure. I thought, oh, I gotta lay down the twine first, but I don't. Okay, sorry, I know it's boring watching me glue. I'm going to turn my book sideways just so it's easier for me to see if I'm getting it lined up right. Okay. If you don't have the burlap laying around, I'm sure just a regular piece of fabric would work also if you want different textures. Alright, so what I'm going to do next is I want to lay, where did I put it? My twine that I'm going to use for a closure. I'm going to be able to tie the front closed. I need to glue that down here before I wrap the burlap around. Okay, so how long is mine? Mine is about 23, 22 inches long. So I'm going to center it and just put a bead. You know what? Maybe I will put tape, it's going to be covered anyway, and then it will help flatten it a little bit. Do I have tape is the question. I'll use scor tape. So first I'm going to put a bead of glue. Like so. And then I'm going to lay this down. Maybe. Let me get a clothespin just to help hold that. Okay, so then I'm going to go back and put, I have 3/8 inch scor tape that I'm just going to lay on the top of this so that it'll not be as bulky, but by using that burlap paper it should be, yeah, it should cover up that bulk anyway. too long, of course. You know what? I'm going to put this back. I'm going to use, I have 1 inch. I'm going to do that. Yep, I'm going to do 1 inch. And then I'll just wrap the excess around the edge. That might help keep that burlap down anyway, so. Okay. It doesn't want to stay. Okay, so let me get the burlap. And we'll wrap that around, and I'll use glue. All right, let me take the backing off of this. So it's ready. Okay, I'm gonna have my book sideways, and I am going to glue, glue, glue. Alrighty, here we go. I'm just going to make sure that I give that a good burnish. Now I may end up putting a strip of something right here where the two meet, like GIMP or something. I'm not sure. No, that's too dressy. I don't know what I'll do. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Okay, so I'm gonna just kind of let that be and see what's gonna happen then as I can tie this shut. It'll just be at the very edge, like so. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to put the other piece on. Like so. All right, here we go. Glue, glue, glue. Probably could have taken off this tip and it would have come out, the glue would have come out faster and thicker. Okie dokie. Good, good, good. Okay. And then I'm just going to let that dry and leave it alone for a little bit. So that's our back, front, and there we go. You can see that bump. It doesn't bother me, but if it bothers you, you'll probably want a different kind of closure. But yeah, I can see that little bump. Okay, all right, next step. For the inside left cover, I went ahead and I put some twine down because that's going to be the closure for the sideways waterfall. So I want to put those down first. So I just used some score tape to keep it down. And then by putting this paper on top, and then by having the waterfall on top, that you shouldn't really even see the bump that this is going to cause, this thin jute or twine or whatever you want to call it. So this is 5 7/8 by 7 3/8, and I went ahead and inked the edges. And I'm going to go ahead and lay that down before I do my waterfall, just in case you can. I wasn't going to put a color down. I was just going to use the waterfall as the base, but just in case I mess up or something, I want to be able to have color behind there, not just white. So that's real comforting, huh? In case I screw up. That's not thinking positive, but better safe than sorry. Okay, so let's go ahead, and after you adhere the closure, let's ink your edges of your paper and your glue. Okay, I did take the backing off. And let's make sure we center, or get it exactly where we want it before we push down. And it's perfect. All right, so I'm gonna want to burnish this pretty well, especially where that jute is. Now, because I haven't made this and I kind of design as I go, there might be a pocket down here. I don't know yet, so that might help hide this little bump even more. All right. Next, you're going to want 6 pieces that are 5 inches by 5 7/8. And then on the 5-inch side, you're going to score it 1/2. Okay, so 6 of those, 5 by 5 7/8. And I'm just going to go ahead and place these down, and see, we're covering it up, but I don't know. Maybe I'll scoot it down a hair. Maybe I want it like that. Let's see if I can pretend. I think I measured this, so this is like 7 by the time you put all the pieces down, because they're 4.5, and then you add a 1/2 inch on for each. So I'm just trying to put them together to see if it goes all the way to the edge of the paper, or to the edge of the cover. This isn't the most scientific way to do it, but I'm going to go in about just like 1/8 of an inch, just so you can see a little bit of that color on the edge. Okay, so you don't miter any corners, and you put glue on that 1/2 inch piece. And I'm going to line this up. Okay, we want to make sure that it lines up both top and bottom. And you burnish, and I'm going to go ahead and lift up and burnish. Okay, so now when you put the next one on, you're going to butt it right up against that 1/2 inch piece that we already have. Okay, so like so. Bump it right up against there. And we'll do all 6 pieces like that. Then we want to line it up with the top and the bottom of the page also. And you want these burnished real well. And we're going to continue doing that with all 6 pieces. So all of the pages are down. I'm glad I left a little bit of a border on each end just so you can get some color through here, and then we'll go back and we'll put our pattern paper on the top. Because I have this 1/2 inch piece, I want to cover that, so I just took a 1 inch strip by 5 7/8 and I used a border punch, and I'll just glue that down to give it a finished look. And then I decided I want a flat pocket in case I have some tags or some cut-aparts that I can add. So I'm going to go ahead and use that burlap paper just to kind of tie in the spine a little bit. That I like it. I think it looks it matches the paper really well. Okay. Now, because I want this flat, even though this is a little bit thicker than normal paper, I'm going to scoot it up a little bit so you can see this color, but I'm not going to make it a pocket. It's going to be a flat pocket, so I'm going to go ahead and put glue on the 3 sides without doing any kind of 1/2 inch border, because when we tie it, it'll still be okay, and it'll be flat enough that it won't affect the closing of the book. But I don't want to add any extra bulk, so that's why I'm just going to do a flat piece of paper here and just glue on 3 sides. Okay, and I'll line it, push it up a little bit, and again this is 5 7/8 inches long and my pocket's 2 inches, so then we can stick something in there. Let's see, I have a scrap piece of paper here, so we'll just have something small that'll go there. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and close this, or tie it closed. I have too much, I'll have to trim some off, but for right now I'll just close it so it's not flapping around. Let me trim a little bit off anyway. Okay, so there is that. Now on this page all I'm going to do is a mat for a picture because we want this flat. So see, it'll be okay, but we don't want anything on this page except for flat things. So now we just have to work with these inside pieces. For the inside back cover, these are the pieces, the sizes you're going to need. The measurements are 2 that measure 8 by 5 7/8, 2 that measure 7 3/8 by 5 1/2, and 2 that measure 2 by 4 1/2. Okay, so there is some scoring you will have to do. So let me bring the book back over here. So we're working on this middle inside section right here. So the larger pieces that were 8 by 5 7/8, you want to score at half and at 5/8, so that you have a 1/8 inch little space here, so that things don't get bulky or that they lay flat. Okay, do that on both pieces. So score at 1/2 and 5/8. Okay, I did round my corners if you want to round yours, and those are going to be the 2 side flaps. Okay, we'll have to put those down first. Then when you open those, you will have these 2-inch pieces. Go ahead and put the 2-inch piece across the top of your scoreboard and score at half. And then I went ahead and rounded the corners. Those are going to keep the inserts from falling and moving around too much. And then we have an up and down flap, and those were the 7 5/8 pieces by 5 1/2. And on the 5 1/2 inch side, score at a half. And I have rounded my corners on all of these. Okay. So you do need to put down the one that is scored at half and 5/8, and we're going to butt that up against close to the spine, but not exactly on top of it. And we want to make sure though that we don't go too far over on either end. So you want to make sure that you line that up and eyeball it real well before you glue it down. And you just put glue on the 1/2 inch. That 1/8 is for giving us room to put the other stuff underneath. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go as close as I can and make sure it's lined up top and bottom. Go ahead and burnish that down. Okay, and I'm going to turn my book the other way, and I'll open that so I can see. And I'm going to butt this one up as close to that spine as possible also, making sure I line it up at the top and bottom too. Glue just on the 1/2. Okay. So now we can put the next pieces on. So I'm going to take these and make sure that they fit in between here. I may need to trim that. Yep, I'm gonna have to trim. So we said that these were 7 3/8. I'm going to take it down to 7 1/4. So 7 1/4. See if that fits better. It does. Okay, so now I got to re-round this corner. So let me make sure that everybody knows this. Originally I said 7 3/8. I'm going to make that 7 1/4, just so it lays flatter. Let me do the next one too. Okay, So I'm going to line this up at the bottom, making sure I don't go over any score marks. Okay, I'm going to put the bottom one on first. Oopsie. Okay, here we go. That looks good. And I'm going to turn my book around, and I'll do the same thing. We're going to center these so that it does not go over any score marks. We want to make sure that these line up when it's closed. All the way to the top here. Make sure these line up. They do. I moved it. Shoot. I keep moving it. I don't want to do that. I'm going to put more glue on. Okay, let me try that again. Third time's the charm. Okay. Alrighty, and now we want to put the side pieces in, and you can decide where you want those. Put it up against the score but not over, and I'm going to eyeball this. Yeah, I'm going to eyeball it, and you can measure if you want so it's exact. Up against the score but not over. Now the next one you can measure if you want to see that it lines up. Again, I'll eyeball it. Turn it sideways. Close to the score without going over. Okay. And then you'll be able to put your pattern paper inside. So that these two stay in. These go over like so. Okay, so I am going to put a pocket on the bottom here. So let me get you those measurements. I decided to go the belly band route instead. So you're going to need 3 pieces that measure, I went 1 1/4 by 6 7/8. You'll need 3 of them. I'm going to put 2 on the front, 1 on the second page, and then we'll what do you call it? Score at 1/2 inch on each end. So it ends up being 5 7/8 once we fold it back. So here we go. 3 of those. Place your long side up at the top. And if there it is, 1/2 inch here, turn it 1/2 inch here. Do that to all 3. 1/2 and 1/2, 1/2 and 1/2. Go ahead and burnish those 1/2 inch pieces down. One more. Okay, so I'm going to have 2 on the front. Then when I open it up, I'll have 1 in the center. I'm going to eyeball it. You don't have to, but I'm going to go that route. Okay, I'm actually going to put the one on the right down first because I have to be aware of those rounded corners. And let's go about 1.5 inches in maybe. And, oh, I forgot I had glue on that one. That's going to be, looks a little bit too long. I'm going to score that a little bit differently because I noticed that mine's just a hair. I don't like it to, I want it to be exact. Let's see if that does the trick. Yep, it does. And then I want this one to be over the same amount. Let me make sure these are the right. This one looks the right way. I don't have to trim that one or rescore that one. I'm just going to do 1/2 inch at a time, and I need to look to see that I am close to doing the same distance apart away from the edge. And that will work. And let's flop this down. Okay, open that flap, and we're going to center the next one like so. You can measure if you want to find the center. I'm usually kind of picky about things, but that's one of the things that I'm not. I want to make sure it's in the center, so it's about right here. All right. Now, the only other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do another waterfall like this on the back side, and it's going to open. I'm going to start at the edge just like I did over here, but they're going to open this way. And so you needed 6 that measured 5 by 5 7/8 and score at on the 5-inch side at a half. So we're repeating exactly what we did here on this side. Okay, so remember, you want to put your twine down first, then pattern paper or your designer paper, and then your waterfall. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick run through with you so you can see what the book looks like once it's all put together. The coloring, I'm not sure, is absolutely accurate on the video, but the only thing I have left to do is I'm going to add some Nouveau drops on my cover, just like 2 or 3 dots around some of these rounded parts. I have a chipboard piece that I painted, and I thought it needed just a little something maybe around a couple of the circular parts. So I did a poll, and people said I should use the word tranquil. It was between tranquil and serene, and tranquil won. But this is actually a clock face, but I thought it looked like the compass, so I went ahead and used that. And then I just have some decorations here that I have from my stash, put some flowers together, and tried to match the colors as best possible. The back, the only thing I did was just add a little sun chair back there, but I did not put anything on my sides. So the tie closure keeps it down. If I were to do this again, I'll show you on the inside, but I would put a 1/4 inch instead of a 1/8 inch like gusset for the flaps so that it didn't get as bulky, but I'll show you that in a second. So here is the decorating. On this, I just used my Cricut and made a beach sign and a pineapple and have one of the cut aparts. I have some of that trim over here too, but I just thought this might be a place for journaling. Because did I leave this open? Yeah, I did, but so you have to tuck something real small in there. And then the waterfalls I left pretty much simple. The only thing I did was add a small sticker on the front, left the backs white. Oops, can't see. Except for I put those little 2x2s in the corner, and I left them open so things could slide behind there. But that's all I did for that, because I want it to be for pictures. I did put that pocket in, and I put this, I don't know if I did this on camera or not, put this trim on there and put some of the cut aparts in that little pocket. Okay, and then I like this twine or jute, whatever you want to call it, because it's thin enough and it's easy to tie. Okay, so then when you open this side, we have another waterfall. It's set up just like this side. So I just put a sticker up here. The backs just have those 2x2s, and then I did that same pocket on the back. Okay, so that's that. This would be a really good album for a beginner, and I think it holds quite a few pictures with these waterfalls. There's 24 pictures just in the 2 sides. So this is where I would have made my gusset a little bit bigger. We did an 1/8 of an inch on the left and the right of these top 2 flaps. I think I would go 1/4 of an inch if I were to make it again. So on the belly bands, I just glued down some of the cut aparts, but you can still put things in behind. I just had a piece of scrap paper that I tucked in there, so you could put pictures on it. So that just tuck that in there just to show that it's what it's used for. On the back, I put a place for a picture. This side, I thought would be good for a picture. I just cut that out with my Cricut, and I left it open so things can be tucked underneath. And then a picture on this side. Left these open so that you could tuck a picture in there. I added a sticker and put it on white paper, put a white mat and a cut apart. I left this open so you could stick the picture underneath, and I have 2 of the 2x2s glued down. Again, a sticker, oh, it's getting kind of close here, a sticker in the corner with a cut apart and a mat for a picture. Then these are just some of the 4x4s that I put inside that you could add pictures to the back, like so. But this probably needed 1/4 inch gussets instead of 1/8, because there is a little bit of a gap here. So it's a fun little album, and it was pretty easy to make. Like I said, it'd be a great one for a beginner. And then remember, we can tie the book closed on the edge here on the corner. So I had this tied when I decorated, so I knew to keep where to lay things down so they didn't get in the way. Okay, so that is the final album. If you have questions, let me know. Again, this was the Vintage Coastal, it's called, by Simple Stories, and you can get these materials at countrycraftcreations.com. These embellishments were mine, but all the paper products that I use, the glue, the scor sheets, what else did I get from the store? There's some twine, or not twine, what do you call it? Seam binding here on the corner. I made a bow underneath the flower. That's from the store. So thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, like I said, let me know. Thank you.